Well, hello there. You're listening to the Sort Yourself Out podcast. Today, I'm joined by Alison Leitheiser, and we're talking about how to train your brain and balance your nervous system. I'm your host, Janine Hunt, natural health therapist for over 30 years, hypnotherapist, lifelong learner, and student of the Ageless Wisdom. Here on the Sort Yourself Out podcast and in my Better Than Happy Zone membership, I teach powerful top-down techniques and practices so that you can master your mind and emotions, free yourself of what's holding you back, expand your consciousness, and nourish your soul. So let's get started. Well, hello there, and thank you so much for joining me today. Today, I've got a special guest. I'm talking to Alison Leitheiser, and we're talking about how to train your brain and balance your nervous system. Now, Alison has an amazing story, which I'm going to let her tell us more about in a moment. It really is astonishing and inspiring. When she was 16, she became quadriplegic. And unwilling to accept her seat on the sidelines, she wanted to participate in life more and spent 2 decades learning and healing. All that she went through in her journey to health changed the course of her life as she found a passion for helping others find hope and healing. Alison started her path as an alternative healthcare practitioner in 2002 and started her own clinical practice in 2009. And today, she loves helping people through their health challenges and to find their way to wellness so they feel better, can participate in life more, and reclaim their health. So let's jump right into my conversation with Alison Leitheiser. Hi, Alison. Welcome to the podcast.
Thank you so much. I am delighted to be here with you.
Well, I'm really looking forward to digging into this. Now, you have a fascinating story and history, and I would love for you to tell us a little bit about yourself and how you came to be doing what you do now.
Of course. Yeah, I was an athlete when I was younger. I was very interested in going to the Olympics as a gymnast, and I would train a lot. I'd push myself a lot, and I had some pretty bad falls on my back, on my neck, and my immune system started to get quite challenged as well. And I had mono, I had a few other things, and I just started to get sick all the time. And when I was in high school, I think the first section of school has an 8-week quarter, and I missed 6 of them because I would, get better. I'd go back to school, and then I'd catch something else, like in just a day or two. So my immune system was really struggling. I had that history of falls and trauma to my neck. And then I think my neck just kind of gave out, and I began to fall quite a bit, and my legs weren't very steady. I began to need help walking, even just to go to the bathroom or something short. I then progressed to not being able to sit up by myself or even be on an incline without being very dizzy or passing out. So I actually became paralyzed, became quadriplegic. I wasn't able to move from the neck down, and I was having like seizure-like activity, and they determined that there was a virus that had gotten in my spinal cord and had eaten away my nervous system and the myelin sheath around my nerves, which is like, if you think of an electric cord, there's that plastic outer coating that covers the wire. And so that's kind of like the myelin sheath. And then I also had liver and kidney damage. So I was having quite a lot of pain, quite a lot of fatigue, and nobody knew really what was happening. It wasn't any virus that they could identify, not meningitis, or I would kind of almost qualify. If you needed 5 check marks for MS or Guillain-Barré, I would have like 4 of them. So it was pretty confusing, and doctors didn't really know what to do with me. So I was, like I said, in a tremendous amount of pain. I was basically failing. My body was failing. And so after going to doctor after doctor. My family started going to different alternative therapies to see if there's anything that anybody else could help us with. And then about 11 months later, I encountered this clinic called integrative manual therapy. And it used to be quite international, and now it's not quite as international, but I was flying. I grew up in California, and I would fly to Connecticut to go to this clinic. So if you can imagine a quadriplegic flying in the airplane, it was tricky, Janine, to get over there. So we would go. I'd get 40 hours of treatment in a week, and then they'd give me a bunch of home programs to do. And I began to get better quite quickly, and I was able to walk even without a cane in about 5 months. The damage and the fatigue and the pain took longer than that, took quite a bit longer than that, but my function was really quick. So that was so exciting, so encouraging. I'd been really depressed, and the way that I coped with life and how I felt alive and felt myself was being athletic, moving through movement. And when I couldn't even brush my teeth or go to the bathroom by myself, I was, having a hard time coping with that. And, my friends were picking out prom dresses, and I was like, not sure if I'm going to be alive next year or not. So it was a very tricky time. And I was really grateful for the support of my family and the way that they wanted to keep looking for stuff. They weren't just sitting down taking like, okay, we'll just keep taking this pain medication then. So I was really grateful that we looked for answers. And so once I became aware of the integrative manual therapy and how much it helped people, and how much it helped me, I decided that that's what I would like to do. So that is my foundation for what I do now for my clinical practice. And I have done tons of other modalities as well. I just love learning about the body. It's such a miraculous little creation, and I just am a lifelong learner. And I do see clients in person. I do distance sessions. I have a group program as well. So I'm doing all that because I want to make a difference in the world, and I want people to be more connected to themselves, to their bodies, to their families and friends, and be able to participate in life to the fullest.
That's amazing. And I love that you were able to go out and find something and essentially restore all of your function in a relatively short period of time when you had been written off. Like, can you imagine if you did not seek outside of the conventional medicine, where they tell you that it was perhaps all in your mind once they realized they couldn't do anything for you? Did they?
Yeah.
Not? I seem to recall when we talked about this before that's what they said.
Yeah, because I didn't fit a neat box that they thought. A few doctors were like, well, must be just, surely you're just making this up. You just want attention or something like that. Yeah.
Oh my goodness.
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah, there's definitely something wrong, but it is hard when you encounter something that's outside of your belief system, I guess, and how do we navigate that? So it's really exciting when you are the person that is the thing that's outside of the belief system.
Yeah. Were the doctors that you encountered originally asking you afterwards about how did you do it? Were they interested to know? Did they know about your recovery after they had more or less written you off?
I never really went back. I didn't see the need. No. I didn't really want to rehash that. And I've had a few experiences where I have gone to somebody, for example, in some of the cranial classes that I took, there were some specific eye courses that we did, and I've had glasses since I was 3. And during the class, my eyesight changed, and I went to the eye doctor afterwards to get my prescription changed. And I had been like a +7 my whole life. And he was like, oh, okay, you're a 5.5. And I was like, oh wow, that's like really good improvement. And he was like, no, you didn't improve. That's just you never improve. Your eyesight will never improve. It'll only get worse. And I was like, what? I'm telling you that it did get better. Like I had an experience where I put my glasses on and they didn't work. And he was like, no. And I was like, so wait, you're telling me my entire life, like all the optometrists that I've seen have put me at a higher prescription than I needed? And he said yes. And I
Wow.
was blown away by that. He was so committed to his idea that your vision can't get better. It can only get worse, that he had, 25 years or something of optometry, other colleagues saying that my prescription was X and then it was Y now. And yeah, it was quite interesting.
Wow. That's funny. Well, it's not funny, it's tragic, really, but there are so many instances of doctors not really understanding, they're not trained in the natural health stuff or whatever. And there are a lot of times that people have quite serious illness and they will take drastic measures, but outside of what the conventional medicine offers. It might be going on a juice fast or eating raw foods or whatever. I've had loads of clients who've reversed their diabetes, they've cleared themselves of serious cancer, by doing things outside of, what the medical profession would recognize.
Yeah.
Yet it's quite a simple thing, about what you put in your body and having a cleanse, really.
Yeah.
And letting the body rest and recover.
Yeah. It's so, there's a time and place for everything, and Western medicine is so specialized, so wonderfully knowledgeable about their particular area. But I think we are missing this. The term holistic care is now like an alternative buzzword, like for alternative healthcare practitioners. And I think we're kind of missing that whole person idea in traditional allopathic medicine. Definitely.
Yeah, that's so true. It's like we're broken up into bits and pieces. One guy does the eyes, another guy does the ear, nose, throat, and it's or specialties related to disease. And anyhow, I could start a real bitch fest over this. But anyhow, moving on. So how do you build resilience after a difficult recovery, like your situation, or during a season of high stress?
Well, I think that resilience has a lot to do with the nervous system and our baseline for how our brain interprets stress, how our brain interprets threat. And so we get a lot of information to our brain from our eyes, from our visual system, from our vestibular system, our inner ear, and from our proprioceptive system, which is like how your body feels, like the chair underneath you or the floor or the car that you're moving in while you're listening, perhaps. And so all these different forms of information come into our brain, and then the brain has to decide, okay, is this information threatening or not threatening? Am I safe or am I not safe? So the inputs come in, and then the brain synthesizes the information and then creates an output. And when you've had chronic pain, chronic stress, chronic disease, a lot of times that output is part of the issue. Because say I had migraines, perhaps a bright sunny day or a bright light could trigger a migraine for me if I was really sensitive to light. So then all lights kind of become in this category of like, oh, I don't know about that. So your world becomes smaller and smaller, and your brain starts to generalize all these inputs as threatening, and sometimes they're not. So it's the way that I build resilience for myself and for my clients is training the brain and getting the nervous system to recognize that some of this information is maybe outdated, and we need to refresh the nervous system's take on what is truly a disaster, what is a danger, and what is just information. And so then once you update the brain, those outputs that the brain decided, they needed before, then it's like, oh yeah, I guess I don't need that. That to create that feeling of anxiety or stress or pressure in your chest or that headache. And so a lot of times people can get amazing results and feel a lot more energy, a lot better ability to rest when you can update the way that the brain is synthesizing information in the body. Certainly there's mindset is a big part of it too. I think that when you've had a lot of chronic issues, it's easy to get overwhelmed by them and to live in that space. And so I think what I've done in the past for myself is, if I can't personally self-sponsor a positive thought, I will listen to something or watch something, just immerse myself in something that can kind of carry me through those hopeless days, because as we know, healing is never a straight line. There's always up and down. And even with our current environment, our current global environment, there's a lot of headlines that can cause us stress or panic or just discomfort. And so that kind of yo-yo effect of looking at the news can certainly influence our nervous systems in the way that our brain feels safe, because we're really changing the way that we were able to engage in life just a couple of years ago. And that's highly threatening. That amount of change is really uncomfortable to our brain. So I think that it's an incredibly useful perspective and approach to be able to normalize the way that your brain is reacting to certain things.
Yeah, I can really understand all that. I've been feeling that myself. I'm someone who is fairly kind of calm and cheerful and even-tempered and things like that. But lately I find that I feel like I'm just getting triggered left, right, and center, and I'm spending a lot of time recalibrating myself and calming my nervous system down. Like I can feel it like an adrenaline rush almost, when you see some headline that freaks me out.
Yeah, absolutely.
It does feel like it's there are regular assaults on the system these days that just did not exist, or at least in the same way, years ago. Like you said, it's changed a lot for people.
Yeah.
So how do we update the brain, and how does training the brain work?
Yeah. So there's, I mentioned there's the information sources that the brain goes to, the visual system, the vestibular system, the inner ear, and the proprioceptive system, like how you feel your body in contact with the world. And so what happens is there's a couple different gears that the nervous system goes into, and we can use those ways that the brain gathers information to change and update the brain. So there's two different gears of the nervous system. There's sympathetic and parasympathetic. And sympathetic is categorized simply as rest, or sorry, not rest. That's parasympathetic. Sympathetic is fight, flight, or freeze. So it's that stress response. And a lot of times we're getting stuck in that stress response and that fight, flight, or freeze. And that has a tremendous impact on how we view the world. So if you are in that gear of your nervous system, likely other things that weren't stressors before are going to be stressors now. I don't know if you've ever been, had a very long day and you had so much to do, and then somebody asks you to do an errand or grab an additional item at the store, and you're like, no, I can't do that. It just feels overwhelming, even though it's just like one tiny thing. And maybe if you were having a great day and you were in parasympathetic, which is the gear of the nervous system that is related to healing and resting and digesting, if someone asked you something, you would be like, oh yeah, sure, no problem, I'm going there anyway. You have a totally different response to the exact same stimulus. So the first step to training your brain, and my approach, is to figure out where you're at. Are you in fight, flight, or freeze, or are you in rest, digest, and heal? And you can do a lot more training of your brain if you're in rest, digest, and heal, and in that parasympathetic nervous system mode. So when we are in the fight, flight, or freeze, our body's main concern isn't about healing. It's not about repairing our gut lining. It's not about detoxing. It's about running away from the tiger, right? There's a absolute danger to our survival, and our nervous system is responding to save us. Really, it's not a bad guy. We absolutely need this mode of our nervous system. The sympathetic nervous system is life-saving. But what happens is we don't often have the resources or the knowledge to get into that parasympathetic gear, that rest, digest, and heal, and be able to come back into balance. So it's using the ways that our brain gets information and finding one that your brain really likes. For example, I had a woman who was really healthy, had very few issues, but she had a few things that she wanted to work on. And I just had her do a few breathing exercises. So the breathing exercise was able to slow down her breathing and to give her brain the experience of resting, digesting, and healing. Because when we're in that sympathetic mode, that fight, flight, or freeze, usually our breath is very shallow, it's rapid, and we are running from the tiger, whether we know it or not. And so for her, just getting a little bit more rib mobility in her breathing. And we take between 20 and 25,000 breaths every single day. So if you can train your breathing to be even 1% better, that's a lot. That's going to add up over your day. And the brain needs two things to feel great about life, right? It needs glucose and it needs oxygen. And so when we do breathing drills, it also helps to feed our brain, literally having enough energy, to have enough fuel to get through the next part of your day. And so often we are holding our breath, or we are, not breathing. So that's a great one. There's also, it can be something as simple as circling your wrist around or circling your ankle around. So do you want to try, Janine?
Sure.
Okay, I'm going to have you do, and if you're listening, you can do it with us. So what I love to do is, because my brain is different than your brain, right? My nervous system has a particular makeup that is unique, as does yours. So something that works for me might not work for you. So what I want you to do is to just measure where you're at right now. So you can lift your arm up and just see where your shoulder mobility is at. You can turn your head from side to side and just see how your neck is feeling this morning. And then we're going to do a drill that was going to give new information to our brain. And then we're going to retest that range of motion. So range of motion for me is just a measurement of the interpretation of our brain, because we could do a drill with our brain that is threatening, or we could do a drill that your brain is like, oh, thank goodness, I needed that information. And if we are driving to a new place and our map stops working on our phone, if we are driving to a new place, our posture would be different. We'd probably be hunched over the steering wheel, looking around quite a bit, trying to find that right address. Our breathing would change, our heart rate would change, versus if you are driving to some place that you've driven 1,000 times. You're sitting back in your seat, you have a better confidence about where you're going. Sometimes you arrive and you don't even know, oh, I'm here already. It's not stressful. It's just a part of your automatic function now. But driving to a new place when you don't have enough information is quite stressful. You're trying to find it, you're going to be late, all these things. So what the drills do is kind of saying, okay, well, let's refresh the map. Let's give you an updated amount of information about where you are and where you're going. So the drills function as a refresh button on your browser. And the range of motion is just an indication of how your nervous system is feeling. Because if we were going to step out on an icy pond, for example, our motion, our feeling safe would change, right? And our our gait would change. It would be stiff and we wouldn't be moving a lot because our brain is saying, this is a threatening surface. I don't think you should be doing cartwheels on this surface. And versus if you were just walking around in your house, you'd have a different gait, right? Your stride would be different. And so when we use the range of motion, just from that example, we can see like, okay, the ice is a little more threatening than being at home walking in your kitchen. And so when we do the range of motion before and after, we're trying to see, is there a change? If my nervous system feels good, if my brain likes that drill, I'll have more flexibility, more strength. I will typically feel a little bit more in my body, a little more calm, a little more present, a little more grounded. So those are the things that we're looking for in the range of motion. So that's why we test it before and after each drill, because my body interprets it different than your body. And something on paper can be wonderful, but we don't know until we check it out. So do you have a bit of water?
Yep.
Okay.
I have a glass.
So we're gonna do a fun little drill. Yeah.
Okay.
This is we're gonna gargle, and this will be fun to hear for everybody. So we're gonna gargle, and we want to try and gargle for several seconds and maybe do a couple rounds. Sometimes when you first start to gargle, it's like choking. It feels like choking. So just do it a couple times. I'll do it with you. And this is stimulating our 10th cranial nerve, which is called our vagus nerve. And that nerve has sort of a regulatory effect and can help people get into parasympathetic, into that rest, digest, and heal. So when we are stimulating this nerve, we're asking the body to pay attention to that area. And then the brain's like, oh yeah, I guess I can like soften a little bit more, or be a little bit more in that parasympathetic gear. So let's try it. So we'll do the gargling. So you guys who are listening, definitely grab your water and try it too.
Good audio.
Yeah, totally. We're for real doing it. And then retest. So retest that shoulder that you moved.
Okay.
You can also just kind of take a breath and see, like, how do you feel even without moving? Like, I feel a little calmer already. And I tested my shoulder, and my shoulder's definitely moving quite a bit better. And my neck range of motion is also better.
Yeah, I feel like that's improved as well.
Oh, good.
That's really neat. I love that.
Yeah.
It's quite a weird concept, eh? You do a bit of gargling, but it's affecting that vagus nerve, which of course has that nice parasympathetic response for you.
Yeah.
And then your body's more relaxed, right? So you can have an increased range of motion. Is that how it's working?
Yep.
Neato.
So the range of motion is just an indicator of, did your brain like that or not? Because if your range of motion happened to get tighter or more limited, or you had pain, that would mean your brain thought that was a threatening drill. That was like not actually helping to refresh your browser. That was like making the map even more blurry. So usually that doesn't happen with this drill, which is why I reach for it often, because it's usually everybody's body particularly loves their vagus nerve being stimulated, because we all can get more clarity around that. So that's a fun little drill to try, and you can start sticking that in your day, and that'll help you stay more level. Your baseline of your nervous system will actually be affected by the drills, because your brain has that increased perception of safety.
So you can wander around throughout the day just gargling occasionally, right? And getting a nice relaxation response.
Yeah. And I also encourage people, if you are going to do a parasympathetic activity like eating or sleeping, that rest, digest, and heal nervous system is really helpful to have when you're sitting down at dinner. So if I've had a stressful day in particular, a lot of times when I go wash my hands before a meal, I'll just gargle or do a couple of drills that my brain likes to prepare it to do the function that I'm about to ask it to do. Because if I'm stuck in the sympathetic, in that fight, flight, or freeze, I'm not going to really get the most out of my meal. I'm not going to enjoy it. I'm not going to physically be able to assimilate and absorb the nutrients that are in the meal. So there's lots of very practical repercussions of training your brain.
Yeah, and that just goes to show you how the mind is tied up in the body, eh? Like when you're stressed out, you don't digest properly. If you eat a meal when you're really upset,
Yes.
that you might as well not eat it in a way, really, like in terms of you might be comfort eating or something like that, but it's not necessarily going to benefit your body when you
Right.
are doing things in a certain frame of mind,
It's a different level of nourishment
Yeah.
that you can extract. Yeah.
Yeah. So what about hormones? How does the training of the brain impact on people's hormones?
Oh yeah. So same idea of the sympathetic and parasympathetic in that fight, flight, or freeze. In that mode of the nervous system, we're excreting quite a lot of stress hormones like cortisol and adrenaline. And actually insulin is, they're like twin, it's like a twin firework with the cortisol. So if your cortisol is high, your insulin's going to be high. If your insulin's high, your cortisol is going to be high. And a lot of people have a hard time with hormones and get interested in hormones. I find have an imbalance or perhaps like weight gain that they can't get rid of. And cortisol, it stores fat and then it breaks down muscle. So that's not typically the direction that we want to go in with the high cortisol. So the flip side of that would be like human growth hormone, and we want that to be high to repair our tissues, to help us to heal, and that helps to build muscle, and that burns fat when that hormone is high. So when we are training our brain, we're trying to get back into balance. And actually, it's pretty cool because that there's a term called heart coherence, where that is the measurement of your nervous system on the parasympathetic side and on the sympathetic side being balanced. And when we're in that place, we produce way, 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 way more DHEA, which that hormone is kind of like the stem cell of hormones. It can become any hormone that we need. And so the hormonal effect of having a balanced nervous system is like you have so many more resources to heal yourself or to shift a hormonal pattern that perhaps has gone awry. And the way that we can train our brains directly impacts how our body is producing different hormones and what amount. So it's pretty cool. It's really neat to see how people feel happier, from even from like a neurotransmitter standpoint. And like hormones are messengers that are in blood, and neurotransmitters are messengers that are between nerves. So they're similar, and they both are giving our body and our brain more information. And so when we can change the messages that are being sent, it can really impact how we are in our daily life, how we can sense into our well-being, and how we can connect with ourselves or with even our friends and family. So it's pretty cool, Jean. I get really excited about it.
Yeah. Well, it's very interesting stuff, and I particularly like the angle that you take. I haven't really heard of it spoken of in this way. The way you're describing things for us now. It's a different approach, and I really like it.
Well, it's just there's so many different doors into the body, and I know you're a big fan of top-down interventions, and you can't get more top than the brain.
Yeah.
So it's pretty fun. And I think that when we do other things also that are helpful to our wellness on either a mind, body, spirit avenue, when we have a few drills that help our brain feel safer, we're going to get way more out of it. So if you like to pray or meditate or do yoga, any of those things that can take you to a different state, you're going to be able to get there and get way further in that if you're in parasympathetic, or if your nervous systems are balanced and they're in that heart coherence, that balance between sympathetic and parasympathetic. So I love sharing it with people because I think it gets it like gives them way more benefit in what they're already doing.
Yeah. And you're an advocate for tapping as well, eh? I see that that you like using emotional freedom technique.
Well, it's definitely an awesome tool. A lot of people love it, and I think that again, if you are going to tap or going to meditate or do any of those tools, if you can do some drill to help your brain feel safer, you're gonna again just get deeper and get more juice out of the time that you're spending doing those activities.
Yeah, and a lot of people are using those activities to get to that place in the first place, you know. So
Yeah.
it's really like a feedback loop.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
The calming yourself first before the meditation, rather than necessarily using the meditation or the tapping to calm yourself. You can take that one step back, the way you're describing, and get yourself a little bit prepared in
Yeah.
order to get more out of the meditation itself, rather than just using it as a way to be calm.
Yeah. Well, I think I love saving people time and
Nice.
energy. And, it took me 20 years really to get better. And I spent a lot of time doing healing work, healing stuff up for myself. And I want that A to B process to be quicker for other people so that they can get back to their passions, their loved ones. And I think that when you just take 10 seconds to train your brain a little bit before you do any of those activities, it shortens the amount of time and the end result to get you there.
Nice. So, Alison, I believe that you have a freebie to offer our listeners. So, can you please tell us about what that is, and also about where we can find you online?
Yes. So I have some options. I have a few free things. You can go to home.inner-restoration.com, and there is a link to my free Facebook group. And I also do a free training every few months. It's a live free 5-day training, just giving more tools, because everyone needs more deepening in our healing toolbox. We don't want to have to rely on all these other doctors, or the person that knows best about your health is you. And so I just love to give you more tools, and we'll do definitely some brain training stuff, and I have a lot of organ relief things that I love to teach. So that training and the link to the free Facebook group are at that site. And when you join my Facebook group, I also email you a free video about how to use the test and retest, how to test your range of motion to make sure that you are getting the most out of the drills. So I have free drills in the Facebook group that I teach people, and new information every week. And then the video is really wonderful because it gives you a better idea of different things that you can test in your own body, and how you can use it and how you can apply it to things that you're already doing. So those are wonderful tools that I love to share. So come on over, and I can't wait to give it to you.
That's great. Thank you. Thanks so much. I think I'm going to sign up for that myself. That sounds really interesting. I'm definitely someone who loves all sorts of tools and practices and things like that. So your 5-day thing sounds really appealing. So I'm going to sign up for that too. Well, Alison, I've really enjoyed our conversation today, and I just thank you so much. I'm really grateful for you. I'm really grateful to you for joining us and sharing all of this wonderful information and your amazing story. You're really an inspiration.
Oh,
So
thank you so much, Jean. Thanks for having me today. I loved talking with you, and I'm excited we got to hang out together for a while.
So there it is, my friend. I hope you've enjoyed my conversation with Alison Leitheiser. What an amazing woman. So once again, you can find Alison online and sign up for her free event and join her Facebook group at home.inner-restoration.com. And I'll put links to her site and the Facebook group in the show notes. And if you're up for some more inspiration and ready to sort yourself out, don't forget to check out my Better Than Happy Zone membership that is chock full of trainings, techniques, and practices to take your well-being to the next level. Have a look at betterthanhappyzone.com. Okay, thanks so much for joining me today. I really do appreciate it. Take care, and I'll see you next week. Bye for now. Thanks so much for listening and for sharing this podcast and for subscribing and leaving me a lovely 5-star review on iTunes. Those things really help to get the podcast out there so that it can serve more people. If you have any questions or would like me to address a certain topic, I'd love to hear from you. You can email me at info@theinspirationcloud.com. Thanks again, and I'll see you next week.